Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee here in the Council Chamber. It's Monday the 25th of November. So first on the agenda, apologies for absence.
We've got apologies from Councillor Robinson and Simon Nielsen.
Okay, thank you. Minutes of the previous meetings have been circulated. Do we all agree they're an accurate record? Agreed. Great, thank you. I'll sign those with some passenger. Disclosure of members' interests? No. Okay. Forward plan of cabinet decisions. Sean?
Secretary for Information, Chair. Obviously, if any members want to look at a report that's previously been considered by Cabinet in post-decision, if they can let myself and the Chair know, and we can add it to a future agenda. As, of course, the property report that's on today's agenda has been through that process. Okay. But nothing to add, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, next on the agenda is the Borderlands programme and the Energising Blythe programme update. Now, we do have some guests with us from Blythe. So what I'm going to propose is that this is a wider report about Borderlands, but if we take forward the Blythe element first, so our guests can get involved and then they can stay and watch the rest if they want. So before we go into that item, got Councillor Carty is here. Eileen?
Right, hi everybody. I'll just do a quick introduction again because I have some more people here. And you all know me, I'm Eileen. I'm the councillor in Blythe, but I'm also a community worker and I've been a community worker for 50 odd years. So I'm basically being called upon as a link between our local community sector and me being a councillor. So I have to be transparent here because I do run a community project in Blythe. So, like, I'm just a link to the community here. So I just want to be transparent on that out in the Buffalo. Now, I have some people here. I have Candice from the Bridale House. I have Sharon from Brick. And I have Clive Gray from the Blythe Tall Ships. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone from Headway today due to unforeseen circumstances, which our chair is aware of. And Headway are the people who submitted the scope and strategy that I've all sent you, so that you've got an idea of what today's meeting is all about. And the speakers today will be Candice, Sharon and Clive. As I say, I have conflicts of interest because I'm a councillor and I run a community project. Okay?
Okay, thanks for that introduction. Just as Councillor Carty mentioned, we have had a scoping document forwarded to us, prepared by Headway Arts. That is with officers. They're going to they're reviewing it because we got it on Friday, and that's going to be circulated to members in due course with some comments from officers. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, if I can ask Richard, you can come and sit up here. You know, there's plenty of room.
I did offer.
Yeah.
You want to sit next to me?
No. I didn't sit up there because I'm not part of the committee. And so usually they used to always put me to one side in these sorts of meetings. I'll happily sit up there, but you
come
can
and sit
hear
here
me.
next to me. So
All right,
I can keep an eye on
okay,
you.
well, 1 second.
So what we'll do is we'll ask Richard to say a few words specifically about Borderlands and Blythe. Then we'll get the officers to give us an update. And then we'll ask our guests to say a few words. Then we'll have a bit of a discussion with the committee, if that's okay.
Right, okay. Oh, that's just back to the old days. We used to be very strict about where cabinet members could sit. Hello, John, as well. Right, okay. So just to introduce the report, I'm not going to take a huge amount of your time. You've got an update on the Borderlands Place programme, which is covering 7 towns across the county. And roughly £3 million available through a mixture of a blended mixture of county council funds and Borderland funds. I think about 12 million from Borderlands, isn't it, in terms of this element of the Borderlands programme, and 9 million from the county council to assist in that work. Because of course that's intended that it leverages other funds potentially as well, where we can, working with project proponents. We've got as you'll read from and you'll see in the presentation, those 7 towns are at various stages of the Borderlands process. It is quite involved. It is quite a bit of work that you have to go through in order to identify a place programme and then bring forward projects. We're getting to the stage where I think the first project is coming to actual Broadlands funding, but we've done a lot of work in the meantime to get projects. We don't use the word oven ready anymore, do we? That's from about 4 or 5 years ago. But that sort of stage. When it comes to, you're going to as well get an update from officers on what's going on in Blythe, of which there is an awful lot going on in Blythe with the town deal, with the future High Street funds and various other funds as well. We've just had we had the deep dive funding, which is seeing a lot of work done on housing renewal and so on in the town centre. And then, in addition, I think I'm right in saying that we have had confirmation that we've got the new government has continued the long-term deals for towns funding, which is around about £20 million over the course of a decade, to help us to cement the work that is going on all of those programmes, because those programmes that I've talked about are very capital intensive, but not revenue providing in the most case. I mean, we have a little bit in each case. There's an awful lot of updates that will go on, I'm sure, from officers on specific projects and so on. So I don't want to steal too much thunder, Chair. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Richard. So we've got the Regen team here who are, thankfully, going to give us an update. So if you can give the sort of the Blythe portion of your presentation now, that'd be really great, and then we can go on from there.
To the Blythe section.
We've got some slides. I think it should be up there. Right.
Yeah. Can try.
So good morning. My name's David Warburton, Head of Regeneration with the Council. I think when we were here in June, I was very new in post. 6 months later, hopefully I'm a little better across things and be better able to answer any questions. We're just reordering the presentation there, as the Chair said, to cover the Blythe update first. I think what I'd just like to say is, obviously it was good to be here in June and to hear the presentations from community members. As Councillor Weymouth has said, there's a lot of work going on in Blythe, and there's already a really significant programme of work in planning. And over the last 6 months, a lot of that has been delivered. So, massive progress. And I think we've just got a summary now in terms of what we think has happened in follow-up to the June meeting. We'll get there in a minute.
Should I press anything, or are you still in control of it? Right.
There. You couldn't speak up slightly, could you please?
I will, sorry, I keep turning away from the microphone here.
Apologies, Chair. The slides seem to have transmuted into the system in a very higgledy-piggledy kind of way. Just see where the Blythe portion of the presentation is. There. It's like it's disappeared. Off of the presentation. It's disappeared. Yes.
It is in the pack.
It should be in everybody's packs.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's hopefully seen the papers and got the packs, so I'll just run through those now.
Should come in after that bit.
Yeah, it's back on follow-up from June OSC meetings. The second slide after. So if you go on to the next slide.
Have we got any printed copies?
There we go.
That's it.
There we go. Right, okay. Brilliant.
Perfect.
Thank you. So, I mean, the most important piece of work was the refresh of the town investment plan and a reassessment of the membership of the town board. So I think, the town board have been in place for a number of years and it's served, served the project development really well, but the time was right to do a refresh of that. And the membership of the town board was updated. And we also did, a huge piece of work there, consulting with communities, a lot of events out on the street, gathering information. The information that was presented at the June scrutiny was useful in terms of feeding into that. And we also had a number of events in terms of the culture and placemaking programme. Progress which is very visible in the town in terms of the construction of the market pavilion, and most recently you've had the drop-in event around the Energy Central Institute and the beginnings of the work to demolish the Keel Row shopping centre to make the development platform for that. And I think the bit that's missing off there, really important, is that the first phase, the Energy Central Learning Hub, opened for learners in September, and hopefully some of you had the opportunity to visit that. There have been a number of visits to that facility with the T-level learners starting their curriculum and their courses in September, and that is just an absolutely fantastic facility. I think the sort of formal official openings are going to follow in due course, but that facility has been open since September. Next slide, please. So again, just a quick refresh there, the membership of the town board and the redevelopment of or refresh of the town investment plan. All of that £95 million of energising Blythe funding. We're seeing the Energy Central Learning Hub already open and the other projects in delivery. The most important thing was that the town board membership has been refreshed. We brought in new community partners, and specifically through the merging of the Blythe Cultural Network and the Cultural Advisory Group, many of the community partners there have now got a voice and a seat at the table in that town board, and I think that's really, really important. Next slide, please. Again, many of you are better aware than I of all the events that have been going on over the summer and all the planning that has been going on. A lot of work around the identity of Blythe, led by Mags, local architect, and some really great presentations there in the town board and the town forum about how Blythe's identity can be better celebrated and made more uniform across the town. And you've all seen the proposals and some additional slides there that Rob's just handed out with information on signposting to cultural venues in the town, wayfinding, linking, all of those things, and a wayfinding strategy that again was presented to the most recent town board and forum, looking to give much greater consistency, much greater, much better visibility to all the facilities that are there across the town. Next slide, please. And then just some specific updates in terms of the planning to deliver those capital projects over the course of the year. And the next slide, please, Rob. Very visible progress with the construction of the market pavilion in the marketplace. Very significant structure there, and that is on time and on budget to open in next summer. Next slide, please. And the Energy Central Institute. So following on from the Learning Hub, which opened on the quayside in September, next phase there is a degree-level learning institute right in the heart of Blythe, so that young people can see a pathway through from school, through to T-level qualifications in that 16 to 18-year-old space, and then into degree-level qualifications in partnership with both Newcastle and Durham universities. That project's got significant funding allocation. We're working with the North East Combined Authority to get the final approval, and we're demolishing the Keel Row shopping centre to create the development platform for this. So you'll have two new developments facing each other. I think there's already been a lot of positive feedback in terms of the impact that the Learning Hub is having on businesses in Blythe, new people coming into Blythe, and this will build on that and bring new uses along with the market pavilion into the town centre, which was always part of that town investment plan, and to secure the future of Blythe. Next slide, please. Long-term plan for towns. I think there was the joy at the announcement of that £20 million. Huge amount of enthusiasm and time and effort went into producing the submission to government in terms of that investment strategy. £20 million with a real focus on community-led intervention. Then there was the real disappointment that process was paused just before we were ready to submit at the beginning of August. But then in the budget, we've got the confirmation that the new government is going to honour that programme. They are perhaps necessarily going to just look at the guidelines around that, and I suspect we're going to have to tweak our submission and do a bit more work with community partners to make sure that still aligns and still fits the criteria. But the real beauty of that is £20 million over a 10-year period, and there's a lot more revenue funding in there. So rather than it all being capital for big bang projects, this is absolutely about community-led regeneration and about the opportunity to invest in community-led projects. So I think it's important to stress that here, and there is work still to do. It looks as though, in addition to the early funding announced, there's a further £200,000 of capacity funding to help us go through that process and get those projects lined up. Next slide, please. So in summary, since we're here in June, we've got a refreshed town investment plan. The submissions that were made in June, we've taken some account of those, and through working with communities, we've engaged with partners, with the inputs from local people. We've refreshed the town board governance, and community groups now have a seat at the town board and through the groups that feed into that. We've done more collaboration to better understand in terms of wayfinding, in terms of the cultural programme, how we want to see things delivered. Delivery of the Market Pavilion is on track. The Learning Centre has opened, and the Energy Central Institute had the first consultation, but more to come as we lead through to a planning application and the delivery of that. Confirmation that long-term plans for town plan for towns investment funding is there, and as soon as we have the new information from government, we will share that with community partners through the networks that we've established. I think working in partnership is absolutely critical to the future success of the regeneration programme in Blythe. I'll leave it there and take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, and for managing to get the slides organised. Sorry to adopt that on you. So what I'm going to do now is, if any of the guests would like to say a few words to the committee, you're welcome. This is your opportunity. So anything?
We'll do Candy, Sharon, and then Clive.
Okay. Have you've got microphones, haven't you? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so good morning. I recognise a few faces from last time. I was here in June. My name is Candice. I am very proud to be the Director and Centre Manager for Brydale House, a community centre on Brydale Road in Blythe, right in the area of deprivation and child poverty, so really on the ground. There's a couple of queries I'd like to raise based on the document dated May the 9th, the Energising Blythe Programme Culture Hub and Marketplace Outline Business Case, just so you know which one I'm referring to. So firstly, to point 3 on page 1, to the term creative play, a term that's used again in point 50 on page 11. So the document states, as creative play will be free at point of delivery for customers and not based on a commercial model, the council will be buying a service. It will be procured separately under a services contract for 3 years before tender documents are agreed, further discussions with stakeholders, and match funding is discussed there as well. Moving to point 76, which is connected to the term creative play. As noted earlier in the report, an allocation of £100,000 from the cultural investment portfolio was agreed by Cabinet in February 23 and will be used to support a free-to-the-customer creative play facility within the Culture Hub, delivering tangible health and wellbeing outcomes for the community of Blythe. So we ask, what Northumberland County Council plan on offering under the term creative play? Have the panel assessed what impact this free at point of delivery option will have on yet more local organisations who already offer creative play sessions? Can the panel confirm whether a service provider has been found? If not, how do you propose to find your delivery partner for this service? And for the benefit of the record, please specify what you regard as tangible. Yes, I have read Appendix 5, but would like specific detail rather than just generic definitions of that term.
Thank you. I see we're taking notes. Should we have all the speakers, then we'll get a response on the
I do have some other points,
Oh,
so I'll just work through them. So moving to point 48 of the same page, on page 11, Jam Jar will operate the cinema, studio space, multi-purpose space and the food and beverage on an offer of a 15-year lease basis. So we note that the food and beverage offer has the potential to and will likely undermine the offer already available locally, and plans for yet another food and beverage provider in the new Institute facility on the Old Keel Road site will merely add to this. Has an impact assessment been conducted on local food and beverage retailers? Will this offer also be subsidised by NCC? We ask that it is noted, as already highlighted on numerous occasions, that we have raised and continue to raise concerns over the term multi-purpose space, and still have had no answers as to what this will really include. To connect some of the dots, referring to the panel, scrutiny panel meeting notes from the 3rd of June, page 4.5 states, concerns were raised over the lack of delivery plan for the cultural hub. the community groups were concerned that the offer would not complement provisions already in place but become competition. The community groups made revenue from room rentals which could be impacted by the project. It was hoped that community groups had been listened to, and moving forward an agreement would be put in place to ensure that the project had an awareness of what community groups already offered. Point 7 then stated, members asked that when officers returned in November, a document was brought which gave a projection that would consider the possible impact on community groups and their provisions. Although it was recognised that the impacts on VSC organisations are many and varied, and it would therefore be difficult to project impacts on a sector from one project. A full breakdown of the impact assessments carried out would also be brought to the November meeting to show what considerations were taken into account. So I ask these questions. Where is our agreement? Why has no attempt at contact been made with our coalition to initiate conversations regarding the aforementioned agreement? Are the panel surprised that local third sector organisations have no faith in their word, feel unappreciated, let down, used? Do the panel, and indeed the wider organisation of NCC, recognise that they have failed the third sector in Blyth? What do they propose to do to build a more effective working relationship moving forward, to build some semblance of trust? I now pass over to Sharon of Brick, who'd like to talk a little bit about the impact we're already seeing.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Sharon?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much I can add to what Candice has said, rather brilliantly, I hasten to add, other than we're already starting to see some impact in Blyth. One of the cultural centres, Republic, at the King's Head is closing. Clive is here to talk about some issues and what's happening with the tall ships. I think, again, the concern is that there doesn't seem to be any collaboration or discussion. I mean, there was talk on the presentation there about joint partnership programme, collaboration, individual support. I don't know who that's with. I don't know who you're talking to. I'm looking at this lovely document that's come out, no disrespect, under schools and education. Brick doesn't even get a mention, and yet we're the only people that I'm aware of that provide functional maths and English in the Blyth area, and yet we're not even listed on there. So who are you talking to? But a private organisation, Innovation Training, who I know very well, and one of their employees is one of our trustees. I just don't understand where the collaboration is. Is it with new people? Is it with the people that are currently there? Again, where are the assurances that you're aware of what is already there and that is being taken into account? Nobody disputes that what's happening in Blyth is amazing. I'm not from Blyth. I work in Blyth. I care deeply about the people of Blyth, as do all of my team at Brick, as do all of us. And nobody wants any of this to stall in any way. But what about the people that are already there? Who's asking the organisations that are already there, can we work together on this? Can we work together on that? When they were just not mentioned. You know, you've got a document that Fran put together of all of the different organisations and where we all tie in, and some of them aren't even mentioned in this. So you talk about collaboration and joint partnership, but I'm not sure it's with a lot of the current third sector VCS. So that's our concerns.
Okay, thank you. And
hi, Clive from Blyth Toolship. I just have to chuckle. The front of the Blyth Town Council magazine, featuring a Spanish galleon which was there to celebrate Spanish colonialism and has absolutely nothing to do with Blyth. But it did get 4,000 people down. It doesn't mention the 10,000 people we had last year visiting Blyth Toolship or anything like that. And I suppose my concern, sitting there, we had a little bit of support to do some architectural work and things early on, but I need to tell you about lost opportunity. And I think that's the thing that concerns me most. We had a bid into the Heritage Lottery. We won the Heritage Lottery Award, the National Lottery Award for Heritage last year, Blyth Toolship. I don't know whether you're aware of that, but we have a really good rep with the Heritage Lottery, and we do a lot with community using heritage and maritime heritage specifically. the issue we got, I put in a £5 million bid, and that was £5 million to come into Blythe. We didn't get it, and the reason we didn't get it, in a simple statement from the lottery guys, was we didn't expect it, Clive, but we had two other cities that are backing their heritage in their levelling up money. I know it's not allowed to be called levelling up now, but that's what's in my head. So they both put 5 million. These other two cities, the towns, had put in £5 million bids, but they'd got part of their levelling up funding put against it. So the lottery just went, oh, Clive, it's a no-brainer. We're going to put our money where we double our money and things like that. Clearly, and I had a very clear message from the lottery, which is clearly Blythe and Northumberland County Council don't value their heritage enough to back you. Simple as that. So we as a community have lost out on what was going to be, and his planned to be and could have been, a nationally important maritime heritage centre that could have brought thousands and thousands of visitors into Blythe. So we didn't get it. And then I have to look at this. You know, great. You know, supported by, and we do get supported by Blythe Town Council, but I need to tell you that Blythe Tall Ship is going to be away, our ship, is going to be away from Blythe for 7 weeks next summer. We're going to be working out of Oban and Cumbria. We're going to be working with, and they're paying us to go there to support festivals, to work with schools organisations, to work with Walking with the Wounded, we're doing voyages for them. So we've actually got most of our revenue for next year tied up in going somewhere else because we don't get. And you can see the councils there and people out working with their tall ships and their organisations to bring things together. So we're having to go because it's the only way we can keep afloat, because we don't feel supported here, and I'm just being honest with you. So it's a bit sad, and we hope eventually to get somewhere. We're working at it, but in order to survive, we have to leave Blythe and go somewhere else. So I feel two missed opportunities, massive capital revenues, and also working with your community. Bit disappointing, and I just have to offer that to you. We will survive. We will keep going. We've just got another lottery grant to try and support developing a museum and a visitor centre development. It's not enough capital. It's just enough revenue to start getting us going again. But we're sort of on the back foot. That's all I need to say.
Okay, Alina, to sum up. Thank you.
I think that's, to be honest, I'm going to bring Candice back in. There's still a few missing links, right? Obviously, community centres, which I run, and I'm going to be transparent here, we rely on income, renting our rooms out, and our concern is this other space that's going to be used in the cultural centre for rentable income to make that cultural centre work. That will no doubtedly have an impact on whoever wants to book our venues, because cultural centre's new. Oh, we'll try that, it's new. It'll be an impact on the revenue that we bring in to continue running our sector, right? Now, if that impacts on us, you might have a cultural centre that might work really well in the town, but then nothing else, everything else that's gone for years and years and years will suffer because of that. And I'm going to bring Candice back in. So it's a missing link there, because we don't know what you're going to do in that rentable space or usable space.
Yeah, okay. So just in terms of any other business, looking through the reports, I'd like to ask what consideration, if any, has been given to transport access to the new cultural hub. I'm wondering if any members of the panel or anybody here today has travelled into Blythe recently. Because if you haven't, I can tell you it's not easy. It's gridlock. So I travel there every day, and every morning and every evening I'm faced with just a line of traffic, line of stalled cars, roundabouts clogged because everyone's so desperate to get through that nobody's paying rules to the rules of the road anymore, paying any attention, sorry. For people to come into this cultural hub, to get into Blythe Town Centre, which is no mean feat, they have to come off the Spine Road, for example, and come along Coupon Road. They pass derelict buildings, private landlord buildings where there should be some follow-up, vandalised properties, and that's their first impression of Blythe. People are being diverted from Laverick Hall Road because they don't want to get caught in the traffic because of the railway. So the traffic has increased on Coupon Road, and that is their first impression. So it's absolutely no wonder that people think Blythe is an absolute tip, because that's what they've got to pass. They're not going to bother going into the town centre to reach the new shiny cultural hub, because people are turning around. I've had people over this last couple of weeks phone to say, can you let such and such know I'm not going to be at the group? I've had to turn around, I can't get into Blythe. Last week I had a blue light behind me coming up the slip road. I was on the bottom of the slip road, right at the bottom. And a blue light ambulance came up. And you could see everybody looking. There's nowhere to move. There's no wiggle room. The ambulance had to turn its lights off and sit and creep up the slip road with the rest of us until it got through the roundabout, and then everybody was able to spread to let it through. I just hope that whoever needed that ambulance managed to get it in time. Do you feel you have some obligation to look at entry and exit into Blythe and support new developments in the town centre? Is one point. And I've seen plans for a relief road. I'd certainly like to be involved in more conversations for that, because the relief road comes in after the traffic and not before, so it's not going to work. Point 73, the building as an asset owned by the County Council will be maintained and insured by the Council's asset management team, as is the case with a number of other culture venues in the county. So my building is an NCC asset. I know Buffalo Community Centre is an NCC asset, and we pay a peppercorn rent, but we have full maintenance for our facility. Can I assume that NCC will only be responsible for the non-profit making areas of the facility and not for areas operated for profit by Jam Jar? I'd like that clarified, please. 2 more points. I'll be quick. Appendix 5, further consultation identified the need for an area for health, well-being, arts development activities, community events, courses, workshops and meetings. All of which I know are already provided, and that's already in the scoping document that has now been sent over. As there are other spaces at this scale available in the town, provision at the Culture Hub will focus on arts, health and arts development functions, rather than extending to more general functions so as not to compete with existing spaces, particularly in community centres. So that's great for us to hear, but there is no report being delivered to us today as it was agreed, no assessment, and therefore we've still got no real detail or clarification on what that looks like. The last point, which I've actually just added on as we were talking there, I met with the team from QTS last week, who are due to take over the new development at Camas. I can see some nodding heads, so obviously you guys are familiar with that team. They were completely unaware of any STEM training opportunities, facilities in Blythe. They didn't, well, that is true, because the gentleman I was speaking to said, oh, I'd like to find out more about that. We didn't know anything. So he's the CEO, he's the one that's come over. He was the one doing the visit.
Just some clarity on that. That isn't true, because they came to this committee and they were given that information at this committee.
I'd maybe suggest you follow up with that team then, because when they came out and I mentioned experience days, they said that they had no recollection of it. So it might be worth going back to them. And that's my final point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Richard to brief reply, then go to the officers to reply, and then we'll take it out to the committee. Just one thing before you start, just to clarify, from the report, Headway Arts and the Blythe Ships are now part of the town board, is that right?
That's right.
And they are participating in the town board engagement, is that right?
Yes, there's a town board and there's a culture network and cultural advisory group that have recently merged or are in the process of merging. So they're 2 partnership opportunities to work through some of the issues that have been raised.
I just wanted to clarify that because it wasn't in the report. Okay, Richard, any?
Yeah, quite a few. So, sorry, I didn't take notes all the way through, because last time I did that, it frustrated people that I was taking notes on my phone, and so, you know, I just want to be clear, I'm going to try and remember as much as possible. The easy one to start with is the QTS one. QTS is a huge investment. It's £10 billion worth of investment by them. It's probably another £10 billion worth of investment by other people. The council is in daily, sometimes hourly contact with them. We've sent teams across to other sites around Europe where they're working to make sure that we understand exactly how they interact with local councils, with local people, to make sure that we get the best possible landing. They're very, very, very aware of what we can do to make sure that we upskill local residents, because in every meeting that I've sat in with them. I have mentioned it. I've discussed it. We had a meeting here, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, perhaps, where their owners, their MD, their CEO sat with me, and we ran through all of these things. Their training provider was there as well, the person who's going to be in charge of making sure that that's happening. And they understand that there's a lot that can be done in Blythe and Ashington, and in Bedlington in particular, with the new college building, with the STEM facility, with the Energy Central Institute, with other providers in the area. So they're very, very aware of that. If there's anything that from your conversations you think was missing, we'll make sure that that's understood, but that is absolutely key. When it comes to the traffic bit, I'm very, very frustrated, but not nearly as frustrated as residents in Blythe are. I appreciate that. The problem is we're doing so much in Blythe. It's a real issue, but it's not an issue that you can correct easily, I'm afraid, because if you're building a railway station, you're doing all this work in the town centre, you've got stuff going on left, right and centre. People are going to be tearing their hair out, and I know they are, because I've sat in that traffic, but I don't sit in it every day, but it isn't pleasant. The worst bit of it at the minute, in some respects, is the Newsham bit along the south. They will be finished imminently because they have to be for the new railway station opening, which again is happening very soon. Those are some very big investments in terms of transport into the town. Bear with us, please. Two stations are coming in. Hello, leader, council leader, just joining us. You've got active transport corridors. Again, people are frustrated by some of those, the cycle path network and so on that's going in. It's frustrating on two counts. First of all, it creates disruption. We recognise that. But if we're going to implement them, then there will be disruption. The second bit, I'll be frank, is that people don't always like cycleways. In fact, a lot of people really hate them and can't understand why we spend money on them. And the simple reason is we're not really spending the money on them. The government, as you'll be very aware as volunteer organisations, they have packages of funding. You bid in for the funding. If you're successful, you deploy it. And if you're not successful, it goes somewhere else. And so it is frustrating. A lot of people turn around and say, why is that not a relief road? Why is that not this? Why is not that? That's because specifically we cannot use it for that purpose. And I think a lot of people understand that, but again, it is frustrating. The bit on the relief road, I'll go into a little bit more detail than I would necessarily have done. There's a lot of routes that were looked at, and we did a lot of work to try and find which was the best route out. The best route by far was through the bottom of Chase Meadows, is it called, that new estate at Kitty Brewster? And we would have loved to have threaded a road through the bottom part of there. Ultimately, Persimmon had a planning permission and built out their houses, and there was nothing that we could do to stop them doing that. It was very, very frustrating. But the original path of Relief Road would have gone out of the west of Blythe, in the middle of Blythe, and would have been absolutely bang on the best place for it to go. It would have bridged the railway, and then it would have connected with Three Shoes roundabout. The other options that we're left with, effectively, are dualling the Laverick Hall Road and linking up to the Three Shoes roundabout, and then doing some interconnecting work to get that big estate south of Big Asda linked in with other bits of the network, and hopefully all of the different routes then are better connected in the centre of Blythe, because that's where the real problem is. I mean, that huge estate, 800 houses or whatever it is, all trying to get out onto one roundabout just doesn't work, and it'll never work. And you look at Coupon Road, which would be ideal if only we could dual Coupon Road or something like that. But even then, the issues that you get are the traffic lights for all of the different junctions. And you can't remove many of those junctions, because if you do, then literally people can't get in and out into the different bits. And so, and you're sat in a town that knows well, the minute you put traffic lights on key junctions, you get headaches. And that is, unfortunately, there's not really very much you can do with Coupon Road. There's probably a few things that we can do to try and change things, but that is fundamentally the Rubik's Cube that you try to solve in terms of transport for Blythe, and it's really not one that's not one that has a perfect solution anymore since those houses went in with Persimmon. Touching some of the other bits, I'm going to phrase this really carefully. So I've called up on my screen some comments from a council leader, and you'll have to forgive me for this, from back in 2013. But that's what Councillor Reid said. I don't know if you can read that. And he had to apologise for calling Blythe a dump back in 2013. And of course he loves Blythe. He's a great Blythe councillor. But we mustn't, and I know you're not doing this, but we mustn't fool ourselves into thinking that doing the same things in the same way is going to solve Blythe's problem, because we've been doing that for decades and it just doesn't. That doesn't mean that we should not be working better with the voluntary sector, with the third sector, and with providers such as yourselves. And I think that hopefully we're making the progress that you would expect of us in terms of appointments to the board, the town deal board and so on. I think there's more still to be done, and officers will talk a little bit about what they have been trying to do and what we might do in the future. But doing the same thing will not work. And whenever someone comes along and does something different, of course, some set of people have concerns, some people see opportunity, some people see a mixture of both, and probably it is somewhere in that middle bit. Hopefully more on the opportunity side and less on the risk side.
Just to be clear, we're not against.
No, I know.
We're against the manner in which it has been conducted.
Yeah, and officers might speak a little bit to some of that.
I don't think I've ever been accused of lacking vision before, so thanks for that, mate.
No, and I'm not accusing.
If you let the deputy leader speak, thank you.
And I'm not accusing anybody of lacking vision. That's certainly not the case. There's some very visionary organisations, of which yours is one. I'm not aware of an approach, by the way, for assistance with funding for lottery bids and match funding and so on. That doesn't mean that you haven't done them. It's just that I sit in a level of the council where I don't see every single email, every request and so on. So apologies if those requests have been made. There will be opportunities, and I would, if you've got a project that's live and available, or is a version of what you've been talking about, that long-term deal for towns might be an avenue to do some of that. It's revenue funding. It's much more flexible, because a lot of you, that's voluntary organisation and third sector, that's where your problems usually come from. It's revenue, it's not capital, and we haven't had anything but capital, so getting revenue into businesses. And no, and I understand that. And if you want to, we're often down your way, because we've run events and hosted things at your facility, and so if ever you want to talk about some of those things, very welcome. Obviously, just to be really clear, I don't control what goes on the front of the Blythe Town Council booklet.
I just wanted to make you aware that I was chuckling about it, so I wasn't having a go.
No.
I was just chuckling about it, but the bottom line is we have talked to the council.
Yeah.
I've worked quite closely with Wendy over it and things like that, but there's never been, and we were told, no, you can't have capital. I think we were down as a secondary bid where for outside the line. We didn't get one.
Understood. I'm aware of your time, Chair. So
Jesse.
I'll be quiet at that point. The officers will have some things that they want to say, probably on a little bit more of the detail, which is where their expertise, amongst many other things.
Well, thanks, Richard. For the officer, just to point out, by the way, the magazine with the ship on, there's actually 4 pages in there about engagement with Blythe, about some of the events that the council have been doing in Blythe, just for information. Anyway, I'll give that to officers to maybe respond to some of the points that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, you've asked some very specific questions, Candice, and I think the best way of dealing with those is to send you a note following the meeting to the committee. But I think there's some general principles that are really important. The Culture Hub project, as we said last time, a multi-million-pound project funded in terms of trying to transform the use of Blythe town centre. We talked about some of the frustrations you've raised and some of the potential solutions to those. I think the other point that you made towards the end was about the condition of property, and I think that was one of the top priorities that emerged through the refresh of the town investment plan, the local, the long-term plan for towns, and the potential to do something about that. And the current government has made all sorts of promises about trying to intervene where we see derelict or vacant property and to give local authorities new powers, and we're looking at all of those announcements and seeing what we can do. And we know that young people particularly were interested in that as well through the consultation, so that is an area that we'll be doing some more work on. I think just coming back to the specifics, we'll give you a statement in terms of that 100k cultural investment fund and how that is going to be used. I think it's important to be clear, the tender that we did to select Jam Jar Cinemas to operate the Market Pavilion, that was done 2 years ago. In a commercial world, you can't stand still, but clearly there are very clear rules about how that contract was procured. The council is maintaining and insuring the building, but actually the commercial provider, as you would expect, is paying a rent, and then the insurance is recharged through to the provider. So it's true that it's a council asset, and we're insuring it, but the insurance is paid for by the commercial partner. There is an exception, and that is there is a particular problem with flooding in Blythe, and on our corporate policy, so there's a detail, we couldn't get that insurance without an additional premium, and the council is probably picking that up in the short term, but as rent reviews happen over the term of the tender, it's likely that the costs will be covered. But we'll cover that in a note because it's really important. And then in terms of the programming, we're still not at the stage where we know exactly what's going to happen in that multi-use space on every day, for the next 5 years, but that is a programme that is going to be worked up. Work is ongoing now, and that'll be presented through the channels that we've just talked about, so that people will have visibility on that before it starts.
And will our scope and study be taken into consideration during that timetable?
So I say welcome information.
It's not going to get into a debate, but the scoping study that was provided will be circulated to the members and will be considered by officers. Yeah. Eileen, very briefly.
Jam jar, because I know jam jars run the cinema, and I haven't got this clear in my head who was actually going to do that extra bit of space.
Do we know that yet or not?
So it was originally intended that we were going to have a separate management arrangement, and that is still not confirmed. We're looking at that, but in terms of actually day-to-day management, there may be some benefit in the operator managing that. Doesn't mean that they'll be in charge of it, but they will have to meet a set of service standards. But we will do you a note, which makes it very clear. It's a really
I think some of this detail will be in the written note, and then you can ask questions on the detail if you. Okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, or is it going to be in the note?
I think that was it, Chair.
Okay, right.
Sorry, can I just literally very quickly do a follow-up check? Just, we were told that there would be an assessment document delivered to us today, so I'd just like it noted that no document had been provided to us. But it was in the meeting notes that an assessment document, an agreement would be delivered in November.
Yep.
Thanks, Chair. I think what we discussed in the last session was that there are a number of assessment documents that have been developed as part of the business case, and they were recirculated. And committee members and guests were able to come to us and ask us further questions about that. We didn't receive any further questions on the material that was circulated. We've got those questions that you've provided today, Candice, so we'll come back on those. As I remember from memory, the points that were resolved from the last meeting were that we would circulate those documents and any questions to come back to Democratic Services, I think, from memory.
Thank you. I think that, so we've had a response on that. Now, before we go on to the rest of the presentation that's not Blythe based. Is there any members who would like to say anything of the committee? Nick?
Could I just ask a quick question about it's a lot of the talk? I mean, there's obviously big investment, £90 million energising Blythe programme. I'm not sure what the total on the railway is, but it's 300 million or something. It's sort of and naturally it causes a bit of a disruption whilst all of that is built out. And there's been a lot of stuff about the cultural aspects and the community aspects, but I'm quite also interested in the sort of business aspects, because there's a lot of good news happening in Blythe with regards to economic regeneration and the work, all the thriving businesses at the port. How many people will the Energy Central Institute how many students will be there when it's sort of up and running and at full tilt?
Okay, do you have an idea on numbers of that?
So I'll probably have to look to officers for the answer in terms of the number, but I mean it's an incredibly exciting prospect to have some really world-leading universities in the centre of Blythe. That is an amazing achievement for the town, and it's going to be critical to getting people into those jobs that are created, like places like QTS and on the port. But Sarah, do you have a number?
I don't have an exact number because we're working through that operational model now, Councillor. So, as David said in the presentation, we're working with the Catapult, the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, the port, and Newcastle and Durham universities. Others may want to come on board with that, as well as a lot of excitement amongst the partners around the institute. So we're working through now alongside the design of the building, so the design suits what the universities might then need, and then what those pathways might look like and what the course might look like. But we're talking about tens to hundreds of students that will come through.
Lynn?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I wonder if Ed could also share the responses with the committee that he's going to send to Candice, because I think that will be very valuable to the committee to see exactly what your responses are, if you don't mind.
Yes,
and the other thing is, we'll welcome everything that's coming to Blythe. We totally understand the problems with businesses and communities, etc. But could I just ask as well, if there's a possibility, once the hub is open and operational, could we perhaps meet again with the providers to see what impact it's actually had on their businesses? It would be very interested to hear the views then, once that this hub is up and running, and if there's an impact on their business and the people who actually attend. And I don't know when it's actually, when you've got a date, and how long you'll be able to give to be able to get a response?
I think it's due to open in summer 2025. So it would be, I don't know, 6 months after that? This time next year, probably? 12 months?
I don't know how the community engagement people feel about that. Would be, I'm sorry, I'm not digressing, but I just wonder if that would be, an invaluable experience as well, and to use yourselves to come back and ask those questions.
I mean, just quickly again, one of your key questions, and I get, one of the anxieties that I sense is the room hire position. And you mentioned also, the commercial offer of a new food and beverage offer. I mean, yes, there's going to be a commercial food and beverage offer as part of the cinema. The room hire, again, we need to look at how that works. The information that you provided is quite important in terms of where else there are rooms. And yeah, it is a concern. There's not an intention here to be in competition with the other offer, but this is a new commercial offer to be able to do new and different things, and we need to reassure you about that in the responses, which we'll do.
Thank you very much. So I think if I can ask now the team to just go through the rest of the slides that aren't Blythe specific, give us that bit of presentation, and we'll... Yep. The Blythe representatives are welcome to sit and watch this if they like, or they can go.
Probably listened to me enough, haven't you? Over the years. Be very welcome to stay, though, of course. Oh.
I think that's something that should be looked at.
Nodding of heads from Sarah.
So that there's not too much of an overlap provision of what we've already offered in the community.
Well, it will be looked at and developed, and in conjunction with various organisations, including the town board, which is which rubs into us well. Right, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Always happy to talk.
It's always good when actual members of the public come and talk to us. It's actually, we feel people actually listen to us. So thank you. Right, so can we have the...
Yeah, sure. I'll just stand up if that's all right.
If you hold the...
No problem. This presentation is about the Borderlands Place programme. So we're just going to take you through an update about a bit of background about the inclusive growth deal that this forms part of in terms of the overall Borderlands partnership, and then talk you through what's happening with the Place programme in Northumberland, 7 different towns that will hopefully be able to benefit from this programme over the coming years, explain a little bit of the process and hopefully give members of the committee a good overview of particularly the main projects that are in development in each town and how they're coming together at the moment. So if you could pop on to the next slide, we'll just run through it. So just a quick bit of background about the Borderlands programme. Borderlands is a diverse, predominantly rural area. It includes 5 local authorities on either side of the Scottish border, been in place for quite a while now, and it's a partnership really to try and drive inclusive and sustainable growth in those communities. It's a unique cross-border and rurally based partnership really, and trying to do lots of different things in different communities. You'll hopefully be broadly aware of the other strands of the Borderlands partnership from other presentations that members have received over time. The focus of our presentation, if you could go on to the next slide, is the Place programme. A little bit more information there about the background, which we can skip over if you want to pop on to the next slide. Thank you. Here's a bit of the background about other elements of the programme in other towns and other communities in the 5 local authorities. There are a number of different themes: improving our places, supporting business innovation and skills, enabling infrastructure, encouraging green growth. There's a package of different capital interventions that have already been made in different communities, as well as other programmes that are in development or in delivery at the moment alongside the Place programme. So as I say, we're going to try and focus on the Place programme from here on in really. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the Place programme within the overall Borderlands programme has a number of ambitions to try and improve towns in different parts of the Borderlands area, to make them more economically vibrant and resilient to change, places where people of working age would like to choose to live, make them more attractive for enterprise, places that appeal to visitors as a destination, and places that are recognised for their quality. So in every of the 5 local authorities, there are communities that are all on a slightly different point in their journey in terms of achieving those overall objectives. Our task as a local authority, as part of over 22 place plans across the Borderlands area, is to develop around 60 plus projects in those communities to help deliver some change through this programme, and deliver some of the outcomes that you can see on the slides there in terms of extra visitors, more businesses supported, better housing, more people into training and employment, and increased GVA, which means economic impact, gross value added is the techie term for that. So on to the next slide if you don't mind. Thank you. So in terms of what we're doing in Northumberland, this is part of our overall town regeneration programme alongside some of the other programmes that you've heard about recently, like Energising Blythe and the Ashington Regeneration Programme, Cramlington Regeneration Programme, various different commitments in different towns and communities across the county. There are 7 towns in the Borderlands Place programme in Northumberland: Bedlington, Alnwick, Newbiggin, Prudhoe, Rothbury, Haltwhistle and Bellingham. Real mixture of different communities with different needs and opportunities, different scales, different sizes, different types of partners in each community. But they're all hopefully united by there being both a need and an opportunity to intervene through this programme. And really we're just trying to underpin what we're doing across the county, which is to make all of these places more productive over time. You can probably pop on to the next slide if you like. There's some background about where the programme came together if anybody has any questions. In terms of how all of this is funded, there's a £21 million indicative package in total through the Borderlands Place programme as part of the business case. That's intended to create around £3 million per town in terms of the projects that could come through the pipeline. £12 million of that is from the Borderlands Place programme funded by UK government. The County Council's made an indicative commitment that during that 10-year place programme that we would hopefully identify around £9 million of capital match funding. This can be drawn down as individual business cases are developed and brought to the Council for agreement as a funding partner. And it's all subject to Cabinet approval and the availability of finance as part of our overall budget processes. Of that £9 million, there's £3.5 million in the current medium-term financial plan, and obviously any other increases are subject to County Council approval. We're also working with other partners in the North East and nationally to align this funding to other opportunities, things like the North East Combined Authority and the Heritage Lottery Fund, and I'll mention some of the things we're doing on some of those things as we go through this. We also, underneath this, and this applies to all the towns we're working in, we're constantly trying to prospect for types of projects that could come forward and help them to develop. So there's a fund that the council has called the Regeneration Reserve Development Fund, and at all times we're trying to identify projects that look like they have some promise, look like they could fit with this process, and then help those projects to develop where they have development needs. And that's a really important part of the process, and we've spent quite a bit of resource with towns already in terms of bringing forward their pipelines. On to the next slide, please. Just a really quick bit about the process that we've undertaken. In simple terms, the PLACE programme helps each town to develop a partnership, a plan called a PLACE plan, and then a set of projects hopefully for delivery either through Borderlands or through other funding mechanisms. We have to go, like all funding processes, through a snake process to get from A to B to Z. It can cause quite a bit of frustration because there's an awful lot of letters in the alphabet, unfortunately, but we are getting there, and there's real things happening on the ground in each town. We've gone through in each town already the process to set up a PLACE partnership, to develop a PLACE plan. By the end of this year, we'll have a PLACE plan in place in every town, hopefully endorsed or just about endorsed by the Borderlands Partnership. And that's really what stage one is. So have you got really clear vision for your town, a really clear plan, and a pipeline of projects that could come forward in the future. We've put some copies around of different PLACE plans that have been developed already. That very brief summary of what a PLACE plan is belies an awful lot of hard work that's gone on involving communities and involving local people and involving local partners to really get to the nub end of what they'd like to achieve in their community. My colleague Pete Moyer's hiding in the corner, who's done a lot of the hard graft with individual towns who members will probably have come across and worked with, and James and our team as well. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And it's a 10 to 20 year plan that we're trying to put in place, so it can flex and change as new opportunities come together as well. If you just pop on to the next slide, please. The second stage of the process, once you've got that PLACE plan, is then to try and secure the Borderlands funding itself. You enter into a project development phase, and it all depends on where each individual town is in its project development cycle. So if you've got a load of projects that are ready to go, you might be able to move forward quite quickly. But if you've got a load of projects that are just concepts and need quite a lot of investment and time to bring them forward, then it might take a little bit longer. But the principle of it is that the Borderlands Town Investment Plan process is available to secure the funding to then deliver a project when that town is ready during that 10-year process. And that's the second stage of the snake, if you like. So in all of the towns, we'll be entering that, we have or are entering that project development and BTIP process over the next few months. On to the next slide, please. Just to underscore that point that this is all about doing things together and doing things collaboratively with the full involvement of county councillors, with the full involvement of town and parish councils in each community, with the full involvement of key anchor institutions and delivery partners. Development trusts are a really important part of this in a number of communities, and a number of other partners in those places, private, public and community sector organisations. We've done engagement and consultation on the plans in each place. We've done online consultation. We've had some great results, particularly with young people. We've taken different approaches. We've worked with public health to engage people in different ways in some communities, like in Bedlington, for instance, which has been really helpful to try and get under the skin of what would help these towns to improve in the future. So on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So just to summarise where we are overall, so you've got an overall picture. Project development stage following PLACE plan endorsement. Bedlington, Alnwick and Newbiggin PLACE plans have all been endorsed last winter. They've all got a project pipeline, they're all in development, we're supporting feasibility work in each of those places. Project prioritisation was then agreed locally. We're now in that project stage before we go to BTIP stage. To improve the process, the place plans that were developed in 2024 include projects prioritised for BTIP inclusion as well. So we've kind of focused on that in 2024. So Prudhoe and all the other towns going forward have kind of, if you like, skipped a stage or accelerated a stage in the process, which has hopefully been helpful. We've learned from the pain in places like Bedlington that to others' benefit, and that's been helpful in places like Prudhoe, Rothbury, Haltwhistle and Bellingham. So by Christmas, the place plans in those towns will include a pipeline, but also an element of this is the set of projects that we think could be prioritised for BTIP stage as well, which is hopefully helpful. So, as I say, all towns on track to have their place plans in place by 2024, end of 2024, and then we push on with the project development. On to the next slide, please. So just a bit of information about each town to hopefully give you a bit of colour about what's going on. In Bedlington, the place plan was endorsed at Christmas last year. We've got 3 proposals prioritised for BTIP development at the moment, focusing on boosting the offer in Bedlington Town Centre, Bedlington Station through a more varied offer linked to the new train station that's opening there, potentially involving change of use of key assets, including some county council assets, and public realm and connectivity projects. There's obviously other things going on that are helping the town to improve overall. The 7 million investment through Advance in the town centre's delivery, which the next phase of which is due to finish in the spring. A new active travel corridor that's just getting underway in terms of improving cycling and connectivity, which has just started. And then obviously the new railway station. So significant investment to really make Bedlington a significant asset for the county overall. Really nice project. Probably one of the first projects that might come out of the process is the Heritage and Innovation themed cafe and bistro. You can see a little photo in the corner there of the station building that's proposed to include this development. This has been developed by the Parish Council in East Bedlington. It's not a really expensive project, but it would have a really high impact in terms of the look and feel of Bedlington Station. If you've ever been to Bedlington Station, it's primed to be this transport and connectivity hub for the new Northumberland Energy Park, for Bedlington as a settlement overall. But I think it really needs an uplift. It needs to, sing from the hymn sheet about being a great place to be and a great place to live. So this would be the start of that process alongside the new station, I think, and hopefully that project can get underway. We're supporting it with some feasibility study cash, and then on the back of that, hopefully seeing some public realm and connectivity improvements to Bedlington Station and Bedlington Town Centre. There are a range of asks or needs that the community and councillors have identified for Bedlington in terms of Bedlington Town Centre. Carefully, but there isn't a project at the moment and there isn't a vehicle to deliver some of those opportunities and needs that people have identified. So part of this is about trying to build that capacity in places like Bedlington. We're working with West Bedlington Development Trust at the moment to help them with some capacity building work, and hopefully that'll bear fruit and see some new projects identified in the forthcoming period. So that's where we are in Bedlington. Next slide, please. On Alnwick. Alnwick is a little bit further ahead in terms of having a package of projects that are nearer to delivery. They've been through exactly the same process, got a place plan last Christmas, got some really exciting propositions on the table in Alnwick, all linked to improving its role as a visitor destination, making the town even better as a settlement and as an accessible place. It has a proposition to develop the Bailiff Gate Museum as a new visitor destination in a new building on its current offer. That's currently linked to a £3.5 million project with a £2.5 million ask of Heritage Lottery Fund. So the question is, during this next 3 or 4 months, can we line up the Borderlands process with that National Heritage Lottery Fund bid and see if we can secure that resource linked to a viable and deliverable business case. It's proposed to be in the Northumberland Hall, which is a county council asset, so we need to be satisfied as a council that that is going to meet all our requirements. But subject to that, there's an opportunity there to deliver a really significant investment in the town centre which could then help to transform the marketplace as well. Just north of there is the bus station. Right now there's a piece of work being done through the Combined Authority to potentially bring forward a new bus station development in the town centre as well. So you can start to see all of these things starting to come together to create a cumulative impact in the town centre of Alnwick in the coming years. There's some really other exciting proposals on the table, like a STEM and innovation hub. The private sector have brought that project forward, and that's benefiting from some feasibility study work at the moment. So Alnwick will be the first town to go through the actual BTIP process, and we're aiming for that to go through to Borderlands in the spring of next year, and hopefully that will help, subject to all of those caveats I just outlined, the Bailiff Gate Museum to secure the £2.5 million from Heritage Lottery Fund. So all of a sudden the Borderlands funding is then boosted and is suddenly additional. So you're looking at a 5.5, possibly add in the bus station as well. You're looking at a £7.5 million package of investment for Alnwick from different sources, and that's what we're trying to get at across all of these different settlements in the coming years. So that's Alnwick. Moving on, I'll just skip through the next ones. Newbiggin. Totally different town, a totally different situation. It's benefited from some really exciting things in the past, like the Newbiggin Maritime Centre, the couple statues, got some really exciting private sector things going on, like the new Needle's Eye Cafe on the seafront there. The community there are kind of asking themselves, how do we take advantage of this fantastic bay that we have? All of the other interventions that have been made in the past, like the shopfront improvement schemes in the town centre. It's quite a small town in Borderlands terms. We're just thinking through how do we develop all those things together. The Maritime Centre have got some really interesting project proposals about improving the centre with some business units. There are proposals to improve the coach parking and the tourism element of the town centre, wayfinding and public realm improvements. We're not quite there in terms of there being a clear project package that we could bid for funding right now, but we're hopefully on the right track in terms of those things coming forward over the next year or so with some further development work. So that's where we are in Newbiggin. Next slide, please. Prudhoe, again, very different to some of those other towns. So whereas in Alnwick, you've got this package of sort of 4 or 5 different projects that could all form part of a package, in Prudhoe, the towns work together to really identify one signature project that is in development at the moment, and that's the Prudhoe East Centre. That's probably in the context that actually over the last 10, 15 years, the Development Trust there in Prudhoe, working closely with the Town Council, have developed lots of different projects. There's been quite a bit of intervention. There's some significant activities through the County Council, like the Fuse Centre, the development down on Lower Prudhoe Industrial Estate, investment in the Leisure Centre that's coming forward this year. So there's quite a lot going on in Prudhoe, but more to be done. The East Centre is a County Council asset again, so you can hopefully see those links being made, working with Prudhoe Community Partnership through the Prudhoe Place Group to develop that project. Is currently undertaking a site viability assessment at the moment, and all being well, we'll have a really good package to put together. They're probably in the position at the moment to be the second town to go through the BTIP stage next year at some point, I would have thought, once we've got some of that project development undertaken. So lots going on in Prudhoe at the moment. Next slide. Rothbury. So these are the second tranche of towns that have been through the place plan project development process. Rothbury has some really nice opportunities in the town centre that have been identified by the partnership there. It's taken a little bit of work to get everybody together to re-energise a partnership in Rothbury, but we've got Crogside at the table, we've got the National Park around the table, so there's lots of opportunities to maybe do things in the future to help that town develop. There are 2 project proposals as part of their place plan that are going to the Borderlands Partnership at Christmas, and hopefully that'll be a really good starting point to do some further development work in that town in the coming years. Next slide, please. Haltwhistle. Haltwhistle's got lots of projects, lots of ideas. We've just been through that process in Haltwhistle, got a really active development trust, lots of different things going on. The local county council is very active in terms of what they're doing as well. There's obviously been a lot of intervention around the train station, which is fantastic. Some of the train station buildings have been taken over and been turned into positive use. A really nice example there of a cafe. And I think effectively a lot of the projects are about reimagining the high street with some more community uses on the high street to make it more sustainable in the future. There's quite a bit of project development work to be done. There's sort of lots of ideas that maybe possibly need to be fused together over this next period, but hopefully we'll find a really nice golden nugget to focus in on and have some nice projects come through in Haltwhistle in the next few years as well. And then I think the next one is the last town, Bellingham. So again, there's some similarities between Rothbury, Bellingham and Haltwhistle in the sense that they all bound the Northumberland National Park area. And I think that's really helping because we're having that joint conversation with the park as part of each individual place plan. In Bellingham, again, is a relatively small settlement, but they've got some fantastic projects on the table linked to the station yard development, linked to the heritage cafe that they've got within that area, some exciting ideas about some of their school assets as well. So we're just working through with the local development trust there about how those projects could be developed going forward. But they've got 5 projects and 4 prioritised for the BTIP stage as part of that package at the moment. So some really great stuff going on in Bellingham as well. Next slide, please. So that is a quick canter through the 7 towns that we're working with. Hope you found that helpful. There's more information available online, and very happy to take any questions, Chair, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
So, John, then...
Thanks, Rob, for that. Great, some projects.
Great projects. I suppose measuring success is going to be the difficult part, but 2 questions which are kind of linked. Bedlington and Bedlington Station are really like 2 separate towns. So I can see the improvement that's happening in Bedlington Town Centre and what you propose with the station at Bedlington Station. It's how do you link those 2, because there is quite a distance between, what, a mile and a half between them. That's going to be the difficult part, is getting people up to the town centre. And similar with Alnwick, we have Alnwick Gardens, which is, fantastic grow. But talking to traders up there and to Alnwick Gardens, there's still that separation between the gardens and the town centre. A lot of traders still have some sort of resentment against Alnwick Gardens because they see a lot of visitors going to Alnwick Gardens and the new facilities there, but they're not coming into the town centre, even though it's a 2-minute walk. It's linking those 2 together. So it's the same question about 2 separate towns. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Yeah, no, thanks, John. They're really helpful questions, actually, as always. The Bedlington's an interesting one. I skipped across the fact that we've got this active travel corridor being developed, and in straight geography terms, that does connect the 2 towns through Gallagher Park, and that's a really important investment. So you've got that really nice town centre development being connected by the active travel corridor, so that that's a clear route from one to the other for pedestrians and cyclists. Naturally, there might be other improvements we could make in terms of public realm and connectivity, but I think the wayfinding strategy that connects the 2 places and some of the heritage assets around the town has been identified as really important. I think a lot of the communities in the area feel like those heritage assets are underplayed, things like Furnace Bank and stuff like that. So hopefully as the Northumberland line opens and some of these improvements are made, we can really capitalise on those assets in the overall Bedlington area. And you're right to say they are 2 settlements, but they're both part of the Bedlington Place Partnership Group. Everybody's working together with that joint vision, hopefully. In terms of Alnwick, Alnwick Garden have played a full and very positive and active role as part of the Place Partnership Group alongside the other big tourism partners in the town. And the really nice thing is that we've got that legacy of investment in capital interventions in the Alnwick Garden, and then that willingness to combine that strength with the town centre assets. In practical terms, that includes a public realm and connectivity strategy and a wayfinding strategy. And in physical terms, we took a walk around the town centre, and for anybody who's familiar with Alnwick, just practical things like that route that you walk from the garden into the town centre past the car park and then round the back of the shops. How do you physically improve that so that it's really clear how you get from one to the other and how you access that parking in a really easy way, how you get from the playhouse to the bailiff gate to the Alnwick Garden to the castle and so on and so forth. So that's what the group are focusing on. It's been really positive so far.
Okay. Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Councillor Robinson's not able to get here today, so he sent me some questions. Is that all right?
We thought we got away with it, but okay, fair
Just
enough.
he just doesn't want to get missed out. That's all. That's all. I've only got a couple. So. Yes. On page 31, sort of like on the Borderlands programme and the Northumberland programme. Firstly, there's is there somewhere physical that has the £3 million pot in it with Bedlington's name next to it? Is it
I'll
something
answer that
we
one,
can see?
Councillor Taylor. So there is, as I said at the start, there's £21 million available for the 7 towns. We haven't split it line by line because you never know, Bedlington might get more if there was another town that needed a little bit less and so on and so forth. And every time we have to make a correction like that in the budget, it has to come to the Cabinet in order to do it. So it's much better that it's not done like that, but that you continue to hold us to account in meetings like this and in the Borderlands meetings that we have. So 12 million of it coming from Borderlands, 9 million coming from NCC reserves, and hopefully we'll leverage a lot more than that, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question. There's 7 towns included, considering both need the need and opportunity. How was the need and opportunity identified in each town?
So maybe officers will talk about it in a moment, but a lot of it depends on what comes forward, really. You know, so there might be some, there have been excellent schemes that have come across from all towns, but I'll go back to, I'll thread it in and connect it with the funding bit for a second. And we had speakers earlier who were commenting on large amounts of money coming from Heritage Lottery Fund. If ultimately we can leverage, let's say, I don't know, for example, the Prudhoe, and this isn't the correct case, but only needs £1 million in order to leverage in 5 million from Heritage Lottery or 3 million from somewhere else, but Bedlington couldn't do that, or Haltwhistle couldn't do that. Well, you wouldn't deploy your reserve, your arsenal of money in that way, would you? So the officers are constantly playing a tactical hand to all of this to make sure that we get the most amount of money from everywhere into those 7 towns.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Rob?
Well, just in very practical terms, just building on what Richard said, to be included in the, if the question's about being included in the Borderlands Place programme in the first place, there was a Towns Index developed which just statistically included issues of need and issues of opportunity. So that was quite a while ago as part of the Borderlands bid. And then at this stage, in terms of being included as a project, it's the same process really, but the benefit being that you can compare it to what everybody said they'd like to see developed in Bedlington or in Alnwick or in Newbiggin in terms of their place plan. So that just adds an extra level of assurance locally to try and bring forward good projects for the town.
Just to pick up that thread for a second as well, just because there's a need doesn't always necessarily mean that that need develops into a project. And part of the sort of work that the officers and myself and others have had to do is to try to get project sponsors, just because someone has a brilliant idea, if there's no one to develop it and take it forwards, it ain't happening. That's part of I think the problem that Borderlands has had in some respects. Lots of communities have had great ideas about what could happen in their community. I'll take a ridiculous example of like a velodrome or an Olympic swimming pool. Great idea, but if no one can make it work subsequently, well, it can't happen.
Can I just come back on that one? Who are the project sponsors that you're currently working with?
There's a whole long list of them, depending on which town it is that you're talking about, Councillor Taylor. So, for example, Alnwick is perhaps the one that has, in some respects, the most progressed. And I don't know if Rob might like to just list one or two of the people that we were talking with in Alnwick as an example.
Are you asking about in Bedlington or in terms of each individual town?
Well, for Bedlington, really.
So Bedlington, they're the project sponsors that we've discussed at the Place Partnership Group. So each project that's in the pipeline at the moment has a project sponsor, or if it doesn't have a project sponsor, it might have NCC as a kind of either temporary or potential future sponsor. So the Heritage Cafe example is the Parish Council in East Bedlington. They're the project sponsor for that project, whereas, say, the Public Realm and Connectivity project that's proposed is the county council. Could possibly be another partner, but it's probably unlikely, so it would probably be the council who would deliver that scheme in the end. In terms of the ambitions for the town centre, there isn't a project sponsor, so the county council is probably the sort of supporter of that in the meantime, to try and do some study work and some research to try and bring forward activity in the absence of a vehicle or a clear project at the moment.
Okay, we've got
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just to come in to add to that, I think one of the things that we're learning as we go through the whole Borderlands programme with the place programme being one of the elements of the Borderlands is that, and I think this goes right across the Borderlands partnership, so all of the local authorities right across that partnership are finding a similar thing, that the place programme process is incredibly valuable, working in towns, working with that kind of bottom-up approach with partnerships in the towns. But what we've also realised in doing that is that there's a vast difference in terms of the capacity and the capabilities in towns. And actually it's quite, resource intensive to develop, really strong projects. So one of the things we are doing as a partnership across Borderlands is putting in more resource at that Borderlands PMO level, the Programme Management Office level, to be able to be levered in from the towns where they might need some kind of expert technical support to develop an economic business case or just programme or project management support, because we recognise that's one of the needs that's kind of come across as we've gone through this process. So I think that will help bring forward some really strong projects across the teams as well.
Thank you much. Councillor, do you have any more questions? Yeah, one more, yep.
I know you've got, we've got the one at the station for the Heritage Cafe, which I think is really a good idea. But what's the other two that you've got?
So obviously, Christine, that was just a summary of the detailed information that we've been through at the Place Partnership Group. There's a little bit of a wider pipeline of other schemes that are still in the pipeline for the Place Plan, but in terms of the three that are looking most likely to be developed, it's the potential development of something in Bedlington Town Centre in the longer term, but we don't have a vehicle or a project sponsor to do something there at the moment, which is why we're working with Bedlington Development Trust, West Bedlington Development Trust, to see if we can help them build their capacity. We'll also do some research on some of our council assets a little bit later on this year or early next year in terms of the old Wansbeck District Council offices. So there's things going on there on the back of the existing Bedlington Town Centre development that Advance are delivering. The second project is the Heritage Cafe, which I mentioned on the slides. And then the third project is the potential for a public realm and connectivity project. Now that could take the shape of projects in both Bedlington Town Centre and Bedlington Station as individual packages. So for instance, you could have, like we talked about on the walkabout, improvements to the marketplace area, for instance, in Bedlington Town Centre, linked to the completed development of the advanced-led development that's underway at the moment. But that would be a follow-on project. So I hope that answers your question. There are other projects there's other projects in the pipeline that are in the place plan that you can see in the document, but they're the three that seem most likely to
because we had
develop.
about 32 different
and we've talked about this before as well, that there was a long list of aspirations for Bedlington Town Centre. They're all captured.
Yeah.
So about 20 of those 30-odd projects are in the idea of a Bedlington Town Centre project as one project, if that makes sense.
Okay, would you want to come in there?
Yeah, please, thank you. So, to pick up a bit of what Sarah said and what Rob's talked about there, when we've gone round towns, there's a huge long list, and some of it is attached to a project sponsor, ready to go. You know, needed a bit of life in it from a business case perspective, and a few other bits and pieces. There's others that they go steadily from there to being a wish list and a bit ethereal and concept in its most basic case. What we will try and do, where it's feasible, is there'll never be anything that is kicked into touch unless it's absolutely mad. Very rare that we get something that's like that, I hasten to add. But what we will be able to do, hopefully, and it's important that certainly this administration is committed to it. I hope that any future administration of whatever persuasion is committed to this, that the 110 million that we have as part of the Blackstone QTS land arrangements and anything else that we can deploy, that we look at these project lists and see what impact they're going to have, meeting the various criteria that's in that document, and that funding, certainly from our administration, is an absolute commitment that it doesn't get frittered away on nonsense or on this or that or the other, that it's got to be targeted in on making an impact to town centres, to communities, to creating jobs, investment and making our towns thrive. And there's every chance that we can pick up some of those other ones. I'll just tell you a little story for the sake of being boring. Apologies. When I came into office in 2017, Nick will certainly remember this well. You know, looking at road schemes, I think, you know, there was some money that we could bid on road schemes to improve roads. And the only thing that we could come up with as a council was to dual the road down from the Snowy Owl to the Seaton Burn roundabout so you could get to the traffic jam faster. And you thought, well, what on earth is the point in this? And steadily we've been building up, with everybody's help, you know, a whole long list of stuff that Northumberland needs, that our communities need. And everybody just needs to keep on feeding into that process. And sometimes it can be, and it will be a longer game, and sometimes it'll be more immediate.
So we've got Nick.
Thank you. Just three rural areas: Rothbury, Holty, and Bellingham, in sort of further out towards our neck of the woods. There's the mention of enterprise hubs and business hubs and that sort of thing, which I think is really good, because actually the danger over the longer term is that those towns turn into effectively retiree dormitory towns or whatever. And but we do need, as well as physical connectivity, we do need digital connectivity. And I know this is a presentation about town place plans, but could we just maybe have a short sort of one-sider circulated, just giving us an update of where we are with digital connectivity, particularly in the rural areas, because I know some of that is being funded by borderlands outside of the town plans.
Okay, Richard.
So yes, you can. I'll speak on behalf of Wojciech, whose portfolio it is, but who's been messaging me during the course, and I'm sure that he would agree. And if he hasn't, well, tough. That's fine.
Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, can I just say very briefly, Councillor John Bennion asked a good question about Bedlington Station connecting with Bedlington. Can I say I was impressed with the answer given, Rob? And it said to me, you aren't doing desktop studies, you're actually out, about, and listening to the people making the representations, because you hit the nail on the head. Bedlington and Bedlington Station will connect, so a heritage centre. Politically, every party for years has said, if we get control, we will put a heritage centre. Bedlington has heritage. We know about the heritage in Bedlington Station, but Bedlington has Daniel Gooch. First stamp ever sent in the United Kingdom went to Bedlington. There's lots of things, and people won't get the train to come to see them, John. They will cycle, they will walk, they will come, and we'll change it continuously. But it's united the parish, and I think it will unite Bedlington and Bedlington Station, which is very important. But my question is very simple. I have a very simple question. Will there be an opportunity as time goes on and these things progress? For example, will we meet, at the moment, faceless people who represent West Bedlington Development Trust? If we're to put our faith in them, should we not be meeting them as well?
I think yes would be the obvious answer, but
I don't think they're faceless, Alex. I think they're all people who are based within Bedlington.
No, we've never had their names given.
That maybe once we've had we're trying to organise basically a strategy day with the Development Trust to kind of look at how it can be rebooted and used as a vehicle, because a lot of the projects in other towns come from Development Trusts as a vehicle in their towns. So maybe we can get anybody who isn't on the Place Partnership Group already along to the Place Partnership Group to just give an update on the Development Trust itself.
that would be great. Thank you. Anybody else on that? Well, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the Regen team for a very detailed presentation. Oh, sorry, we're going to...
Thank you, Chair. If I could just say one thing. I mean, thank you, Councillor Wallace, for that really very generous comment. I mean, the team work incredibly hard, and we know we've got a big geography. It's absolutely the case. There is no shortage of good ideas, and communities, you know, we can applaud them, but there is a really difficult piece in terms of, you know, what was said about Blythe. Building partnership and trust is really difficult, especially where there is, you know, often some competition as to what the best idea is, and that community capacity is not something that is built overnight. You know, there's a really important role working with local members, working with local communities, because sometimes those groups that shout the loudest, you know, do get there first. But we've got to make sure these are the right investments. We have a duty to invest that money really very wisely. And I think, again, you know, the point that Councillor Winworth made about the GIF there is critical. There's a seemingly large amount of money there, but it has to be invested really strategically. And I think, you know, the work that is being done is really valuable. The place plans are the first step, the investment plans to follow. And we know there's impatience, we know communities want to see results very quickly. But we have to keep faith with the process. We have to keep faith that we've got the right process to deliver the right outcomes. And so, you know, thank you for all the questions and comments, but I think, you know, the team is working incredibly hard to deliver on behalf of communities.
Thank you very much. Which has got a very,
Just
very brief
comments, which is to thank the team. They all look very fresh-faced today, and I look absolutely knackered. But believe me, they're all as exhausted normally as I look today. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And you can stay in for the next bit if you want, or you can get on and have a nap if you want. Right, moving on to the next bit of the agenda is the property review. This is part of the best property review. It came to us originally, it's now developed into phase 1 that went to Cabinet in September. So we're now here just to review what happened and get an update and let our views be known. So, Richard, do you want to say a few words?
The very briefest of few
I
words.
could say a few words.
Oh, there we are, the voice from above. We have Councillor Poshai. So I wouldn't dare step on his toes.
Sorry, he's beaming in. So, Wojciech, if you can give us a few words.
Yeah, I was here all the time.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the car, so
okay,
I
fair
won't
enough.
save you
Okay.
but
just make sure you're not driving, just for safety purposes. Okay.
There we are.
Hands free. So that's the phase 1 of the property review. You had that report, I think, in August in the scrutiny committee, where we presented the options, which was basically weeding the Foundry House and what was the one in the second? I just have to look on the names. The one in Cramlington, I think it was Northumbria House, yeah. And Compass House in Blythe, basically, and moving everything to the county hall and to the Eddie Ferguson's house in Blythe. So that's been approved by Cabinet in September, and now we've got Rob sitting there, who will provide us an update how it goes and if we made any progress with it. Up to Rob.
Okay, thank you, Wojciech, and I'll pass you over to Rob.
Thank you. This is phase 1 of a phase 4 approach, where we're looking at getting the county council's property estate into a fit condition and scale. Phase 1, we did focus on the buildings we used in the southeast, and it's the case that there's been progress on that. County Hall has been put into what we're calling directorate zones now, and so staff from Northumbria House have been relocated to County Hall. Other staff are going to be relocated to Eddie Ferguson. We've had lots of engagement with staff, including at the Best Expo event a few days ago, when more than 400 staff attended. We have implementation plans now for Compass House, Foundry House and Blythe Civic. There's going to be improvements made to Eddie Ferguson. Just to be clear, those moves have been made on the basis of operational needs, occupancy rates, the conditions of those buildings, in other words, outstanding maintenance, and public access. So the public access to Eddie Ferguson will be improved. what this has meant is that this and the future phases of the property review will put pressure on County Hall capacity. So we are looking now at doing a light touch refurb to the dogleg to make available both training and meeting rooms in there. That's being worked up at the moment, and that's going to go to the best use of assets board in December. To give you a quick canter through, we're going to approach the other assets of the County Council on a town basis, so we can look at the consequences for the buildings. We've done the quick run through for phase 2 on Alnwick, Morpeth and Ashington. I can't give details out of those because there are some commercially sensitive issues there. Phase 3 will look at all the other towns in the county, and then phase 4 will look at land assets which do not fall in any of the towns. To complement this, work streams like a library review is underway at the moment. So hopefully all this will dovetail into each other, and we can get an estate then that it's worth maintaining, and we can have a focused approach to having it the right quality and maintenance to, and maintain to a suitable quality via our new corporate landlord approach, which is subject of another review. But I'm happy to take questions on where we are on this.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Any questions to members? Councillor Grimshaw?
Thank you. Right, Rob, yes. I'm a little bit concerned now because of the capacity that the staff are working in at County Hall at present. And, you know, I've had one or two residents confided in me to say that they feel as though that when they're being talking about sensitive or confidential issues, there's other people in the background perhaps working. And they feel as though, you know, they're being overheard and they're sensitive, very confidential issues. Perhaps it could be to do with adult services, children's services. I don't know how you're going to monitor that in the future, if we're going to have more hot desking. Another question I have, please, if you don't mind, and you can answer them all together, is what capacity you envisage when all this hot desking and all of the assets that you hope to, you know, like perhaps move on, the capacity that any one person, any people could actually use desks at County Hall. Another question I have you worked out how much it will cost to actually facilitate people in here, and how much will it be to refurbish the rest of the building? Is that in the current budget, or will that have to be extra cash you'll have to find? Also, you know, we've also got, sorry, about I would like the assessment, if you don't mind, that the people have been completely enough from Northumbria House, etc., for the move. And we haven't. Can we have that assessment? Because it says a change of impact assessment has been completed.
Yes.
Could we possibly have a copy of that, please? Yeah. And also, and that links in with 6.12 with the implications of the move, relocating. The other thing I've got as well, and you have, and this is a financial implications as well, is actually for the people in various locations, and the excess that you envisage travelling once all these phases has been, you know, like in situ.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I know there's a lot there.
Okay, there's a few questions there. So,
yeah. It just, well, I had his attention, that's all.
That's
Chair.
fine.
Yep.
I'm sure we can get answers for you.
Right. Okay. In terms of sensitive conversations and meetings, this has actually been at the heart of us looking at the requirements, because at the moment it is not perfect at the moment. So when we are looking at both work in the County Hall and work in Eddie Ferguson, there are dedicated areas where both physical meetings on sensitive issues, including secure facilities, and sensitive meetings via video can take place as well. So at the moment, you're right. We've not really looked at our property estate with a view of video meetings taking place, so that has been factored in. In terms of capacity in the County Hall and basically the number of desks per staff, what we've done has been quite a lengthy process where we've looked at every single member of staff, and they've been categorised by the, are they out on site a lot? Do they come into offices occasionally for quick meetings? Are they completely in the office? Do they work remotely part of the time? Based on what the job requires. And depending on what mixes of what staff types there is in a team or a department, then we've given them the space accordingly. So, for example, if I can, the one I know intimately is the place and regen function that both planning, regen, etc., and housing sit in. We operate in there off of a 1-to-10 ratio in terms of desk space per staff. So you have to, so you come in occasionally. Other departments, for example, some of our social workers, where they need to have a lot more case conferencing and face-to-face work, they have a higher ratio of desk to staff. So all this has been done on an evidence basis. There will be a settling in period, though, as people get to understand what the actual requirements are, and there'll be things which crop up, say once every 2 years, that we're not fully aware of now, but that can be hopefully accommodated within both the county hall and us using the dog leg, and we are not talking, of course, of getting rid of every other property asset we've got. We will keep various locations in the county. In terms of things like the dog leg funding, I say that the costing on that is going to the board in early December. We can come back with an update on that. Yeah.
I don't know if we've still got Wojciech chair or not. But I think that there is some budget still that's sat for a while in the medium-term financial plan for that, Lynn. I think that if I might just add a couple of bits with your indulgence, Chair, that obviously in the last 4 years we're working all very differently. If I look to the time before the pandemic, I was always on the road, driving up to Berwick, driving across to Hexham or whatever. Yeah, I still visit those places, obviously, but I don't drive there for a meeting and so on. It's all very, very different. And so we've really had to take time to look at it, and everything's settled down a bit and work out how this will all be optimised. I agree with you, by the way, in terms of the backdrop to people, but you know, I think that there's probably we'll need to look at a bit more space for private space. Probably those conversations did actually happen on telephones, and it's just a bit disconcerting when you see something in your background, but it still remains, you know, they use their headsets, there still remains a very confidential setting. But in the most obvious cases where it's something around really detailed case around children or vulnerable adults or whatever, they should be in a private setting, and they are in a private setting as far as I'm aware, and we'll just doubly make sure of that.
Yeah. The only bit I was going to finish on was sort of your overall question about costs, and remember that we're not in a situation where if we don't decide to make any changes, there are no cost implications. There are a very large number of buildings which require extremely significant amounts of investment in them to make them, to make the heating system work, to make them secure, to bring online proper public access, to upgrade the IT, etc. So we are looking at a net and gross costing here in terms of moving to a building. We look at the costs of that move as against the costs of in situ improvements. I remember that some of the buildings we're talking about, and the county council, outside of the issue of its 7,500 council houses, we own something like 1,800 property assets in the county, and some of those, and it's in some of the reports you'll have seen, some of the buildings currently have very low occupancy rate. And in those buildings, the staff are unhappy, with the quality of the accommodation. So it makes sense to focus in on a narrow down range and then think about operational requirements, staff requirements, and the public's access requirements as well. So all this is hopefully squaring that circle. Thank you.
Don't mind, can I just... That's very useful, Rob, and thank you very much, and thank you, Richard. I've still got a little bit of a concern with those people who are not able to have face-to-face meetings, and what do we envisage moving forward to support those people? And I'm really a little bit concerned about that, because obviously we still have to look after vulnerable people, because that's part of our, a commitment.
I think actually one of the points of this programme is to address that issue, because a lot of these buildings do not have face-to-face council receptions so what we're doing is one thing that the message that
Sorry,
I'm just
I haven't finished, though, Chair.
well, yes, but I'm just answering a point for you, just so the press are aware as well. That there is the fact that we are rationalising buildings does not mean that there is any reduction in public-facing space to the public. In fact, quite the opposite. Part of this programme is to increase public-facing space. So I think that's a message that needs to be quite clear as part of this programme. But I'll let you finish.
Thank you, Chair. The thing is, you know, the people, you know, are entitled to our support. So I just wondered if we could find out exactly what you're going to have in place for these people who are outlying areas, who the areas that we are going to look at. And I totally agree, we need to look at what asset register. But I just want to know what kind of support that we will be giving to ensure these people that we are still looking after their needs.
Yeah.
So I'll be very grateful for that. I just hope that we all this will be value for money, I am very concerned about that area, and I'm sorry to say I think we all are, because we all have residents that are, you know, that are dependent still about being able to meet in these places, you know, and that's all I want to know if it's possible. Thank you.
Yes, I think we do need to be very clear with our residents and make it very clear that, you know, there is no suggestion of any reduction of public-facing facilities. So I know there may be concerns, but we need to allay those concerns of residents that this programme is not about that, but I'm sure...
Rupert wants to make a point, then I'll come in.
If I may, Chair, I mean, one of these buildings, even I struggled to get into it. It took me 10 minutes to find someone to ring up because there was nobody in it virtually, and that was a couple of years ago. But you know, I won't say which one it is, but when you come here to County Hall, you see a much more publicly facing organisation, and that's entirely what we need. You've got the various hubs, you've got meeting space where people can come, and you know, so maybe a lot of people will be working remotely even from this office. But we'll go and meet clients and so on in a public place, in a private room with all of the equipment that they need. That's what we need to get to, and having a smaller footprint, but still footprints in individual towns and communities is where we'll need to get to, Councillor Grimshaw. I entirely agree.
Yeah, can I just...
That gives you some reassurance.
Yeah, can I just finish on, and this is one of the conceptual strengths, and this is why I was keen to do it this way, and do it on a town-by-town basis. So what we are not doing is just having a very long list of property assets and saying, does it need it or not? On a town-by-town basis, then you can look at what capacity there is in the town, and you can look at the consequential implications for other buildings, and you make a choice of, well, that building will be the focus for staff and customer interfaces. Okay.
Thank you. Nick?
Great report, great piece of work, I think, and obviously £620,000 in the first phase as a saving is not to be sneezed at. Are the Estates Department working with Regen and with Advance on identifying sort of best use for the assets that we no longer need, and seeing whether there's any sort of job creation and Regen opportunities?
Yes, and there's a wider look at assets in terms of I think it's fair to say that going back to pre-LGR days, we haven't had a comprehensive look at our estate, and clearly service needs have changed. Some buildings may be needed by other county council functions or public sector functions, in that will require proper business cases for them. There will be regen and reuse opportunities, for example, you know, say as residential sites potentially, as well as job creation ones. But also remember as well, we've recently updated the entire community asset transfer policy approach, and to where there's opportunities for really robust and sustainable community uses. We will look at that as well. But we will always be doing, a principle that we will follow through consistently is always doing soft market testing, just to make sure there isn't a private sector potential developer out there who could make good use of the building. So we want to approach this, you know, on a really consistent and methodical basis.
And so the Regen team want to come in on that?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to echo what Rob said, yes, we're working. I mean, one of the benefits of the management restructure last year was that estates now sit within Regen and economic development. So Actually, a lot of our work within towns draws on the assets we've got there and the estates function as well as regen. So very much Rob as the SRO for this process is building on the asset management framework we've got on estates and doing that hand in hand with the regen plan. So actually a number of the plans that Rob ran through in terms of the Bedlington Place plans, that's looking at the estates we've got within those towns as well. So we're taking that kind of rounded approach to each of the areas.
Thank you for that. Any of the members got any questions? Or no? Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. So forward programme, Sean?
Nothing to add to what's in the document, Chair. I think these items have been previously reported.
Yep, so that's just for information. Now I've got urgent business, if any. I've got none. So I will close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for turning up, and a very productive meeting. Thank you very much.